Welcome back. Get a grip on lighting. It's Michael Colligan and Greg Ehrich. And we're going to be talking about exit signs and emergency lighting on this show. I don't know why. Such a big deal about emergency lighting these days. Everywhere you go, all you hear is emergency lighting, exit signs, remote heads, all this kind of stuff, battery packs, tubes that have exit sign capability in them, all sorts of stuff, emergency lighting capability in them. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but first I want you to go to Baron Lighting Group. That's baronltg.com for their line of Exitronics emergency lighting, Greg.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm telling you, a lot of people have exit signs, right? That's common knowledge. A lot of manufacturers have it, but no one has the depth they do. And really, when it comes to that, when you think about what the title emergency lighting kind of rings a bell, like, oh man, we better make sure we do this right. Aaron and Exitronic is going to make sure you do it right. They have every single product you can imagine: exit signs, combos, remote, emergency lighting, inverters, battery packs, and they even have all the different offerings for cities, including one that says the Canadian offering. Huh?
Ooh, hey
We've got a
now.
Canadian offering of exits and because you have the Running Man. Is that why? We don't have the Running Man here.
Yeah, that's,
Maybe that's
you know
why.
what? You're not supposed to run in an emergency, so I don't know why they made it a Running Man. It seems like such a dumb idea. But yeah, Canada adopted that international standard, and now nobody
Yep.
knows where the exit is.
Either running to it or away
It's
from it or
supposed to
both.
run
I
to
don't know.
the exit. Like no, everybody in emergency is supposed to walk calmly in a straight line out of the theater, right? No, instead they put a running
Yep.
man sign. I don't know what to say, but yeah, go to Baron LTG's got them. We're not in control of that as distributors. All I can do is,
Yep.
be the outspoken host of Get a Grip on Lighting. Go to baronltg.com. They have the depth is what Greg Eric said there, and that's the
Mm.
truth. The depth of the line. These people are committed to emergency lighting. They're experts in emergency lighting. baronltg.com. Of course, the members have nailed. Our convention is September 22nd to 24th in beautiful St. Paul, Minnesota. Be there, be square, Greg Eric.
I'll be there. You will. Everyone in Nailed should be. Aaron will be as well.
Yeah.
All right. So, we've had shows. We actually had Baron and we talked to them a little bit about the importance of emergency lighting and exit
Mm.
lighting and all of that. And it's still something that I find more and more opportunity for if you stop and look for it,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of times it's overlooked. And we go in and we do a lighting project or a retrofit, and you don't even think about the emergency lighting. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're caught with an issue. Now you're into the fixture, and then it's an emergency fixture. So what I wanted to talk about today is just what can you do when you're in that situation.
Mm.
And there's really a few options. So, one of the first option is there's different drivers that can sometimes work with the product you're putting in to make it emergency capable. So, depending on what it is, if it's a fixture or if it's a bulb or what it might be, there might be some sort of driver or inverter that can fire that bulb or that product when it's needed to. Is it enough light? Depends on the product, right? So there's a lot of variables, a lot of questions that go along with it. And then does it wire right? Does it fit in the fixture? All these things come into play. But it is an option. So you'll see that out there. There's also option of certain bulbs, like let's just take a LED tube right now. There's a lot of people that have these emergency backup LED bulbs, and that can be, a quick, somewhat easy fix. But there's a lot that goes into it that you don't always think about. Um, it has to be rewired differently from the rest of the fixture oftentimes. Some of them have a different socket than what would be on there. Okay, now you get into different sockets. Does it fit in that fixture? Is it going to work? And then in the future, will that same bulb be available? That's what worries me to some degree about these bulb ready products is saying, hey, I'm going to give you an emergency backup LED tube. Great. It has this weird end that they might totally change it in a year. They might change it in 2 years. They might change it whenever. But when that burns out, will the customer then know I have to order this different one? And it's going to be weird. And it's a different bulb now that I got to stock. And so all that kind of goes into play too. But those are, a few of the things. And then really the next option is seeing what's existing out there. If they have an exit sign that doesn't have bug eyes, or if they have, some other system out there to make it. And I should preface this by saying it's a lot of times there's like backup generators and all that. And you don't need to get into this. But I'm saying when you get there and when you need to get into it, and it happens often. where you have to get into it and figure this out, is how to install a separate emergency system. And I think that's one important word there is separate. To me, I think that's the best way is trying to find a system that's meant just for the emergency, and that's where companies like Exitronic and Baron stand out, as they can help you with that. But that's really what I look at is, okay, can we try to do something with the existing fixture or bulb, and then does it make sense to, or do we look at a whole different system? What do you do when you run into this?
I think, and listen, there's lots of good products out there that solve all kinds of problems. Okay.
Mhm.
So emergency tube, okay, that maybe that solves a problem. Maybe that's a good replacement for Bodine ballasts, stuff like that. The old Bodines that were out there.
Yep, yep, yep.
You had those. So I'm not saying that the the tubes are bad, but what I am saying is that that's going to lead to. You ever done Bodine maintenance, ballast maintenance for a customer back in the day?
Try to replace it. Yeah,
Where they
yeah,
where they order 100 Bodine ballasts and it's like $75,000 or something like that. You know what I
yep,
mean? And they're like,
totally.
"Whoa, we got to replace these every whatever amount of years."
Yeah,
And so the second thing is that you know I don't know how distributors are new to emergency lighting. Most lighting distributors in the past, their engagement with the emergency lighting industry was selling 15 T6s to the guys that dress up in like kind of pseudo fire chief clothes and go around and check people's emergency lighting and change the light bulbs and check their fire extinguishers and all that
hmm,
kind of stuff. You know those services that go around and they give you a report?
yep,
Yes, all your emergency lighting, they check your first aid kit and your fire extinguisher and your that kind of stuff. And so now those two things are on a collision course because of the adoption of LED lighting. And my opinion is that it's always better to have a separate emergency lighting system that can be checked either by your generator maintenance guy who comes in and does a generator test every 3 months, services your generator, or the yearly battery switch. You check the battery, the lights come on, the exit sign comes on, the emergency remote heads come on, you check all those things. When it's incorporated into a fixture, it disappears.
yeah.
And I think what's going to happen is that this is going to lead to places not having emergency lighting as much as they should. That's my
You're
opinion.
right. Yeah, and I ran into a church school the other day that went in and bypassed all their ballasts and installed LED tubes, and then we got down and they realized that, they bypassed all the emergency lighting too now, and now they don't have any emergency lighting. And it's a school where kids are at. You need to have emergency lighting. You can't overlook that. You need to have a plan. You need to have something in place. And so now you come in with a whole separate dedicated system just for that. But I think it's an issue that will be commonplace is that people won't have the right system, and then they'll get into an emergency, have a problem, and likely get in trouble because they didn't have the right emergency lighting.
Have you ever been involved in a lawsuit where there's liability like death or something like that?
I have not. No, have you?
You know me, I get dragged into all sorts of
I'm
stuff.
sure you have. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So people are always looking for my advice on things. So I
Yeah.
talked to this lawyer, and the guy in the Zoom call, he had this huge book on his desk. Kid was killed. A kid was hit by a kid was hit on a bicycle, and
Mhm.
the lawyers pulled out all the traffic codes, and they were going through every part of the traffic code, and this on ramp was missing this and this and this and this from the code. It wasn't built
Mhm.
properly. It's missing this. It's missing that, and it's missing this. And so immediately that puts the local region, local town, and the local region in the lawsuit because you didn't build
Yep.
your on ramp properly, right?
Yeah.
This is a similar thing to that. If something like emergency lighting is one of those things that doesn't matter at all until it matters.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't matter at all until it matters. And when it matters, it's horrible when there's no emergency
Matters
lighting
more
in the.
than anything when it
Yes,
matters.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, that's why I like the idea of separate, it's a separate system. It is maintained separately from the general lighting. The general lighting is one thing, and the emergency lighting is another. Whether distributors become proficient at, we just overdo it. That's how we do emergency lighting. If somebody says we don't have enough emergency lighting here, we call a company that's called emergency lighting, and
Yep.
they do the layout, and then I just tell them to double it, and then we
Yeah.
go and this is what you're getting.
Yep.
It's going to be lit up like a Christmas tree, buddy, if the thing goes down. And so I don't think you can have too much emergency lighting. You know what I mean? Like if a factory
Yeah.
has a fire and the transformer blows up and people are trying to get out of the factory.
Yep. Need to have that thing lit,
Yeah,
and I'm
man.
telling you,
On the third
not
shift at night.
right, and not because they're sponsoring this, but because it's legit. You need to work with a company like Exitronics and Baron because they have the background, they have the history, they have the knowledge, they know what's needed. Trust them, use them, get the right stuff, do it right.
Yeah, Baron Lighting's definitely a leader in this space, but I think we could also use as an industry, maybe through Nailed or NED could do it, or one of the other organizations could put together an emergency lighting training program, an LS emergency lighting. And it
That'd
goes
be
through
awesome.
the terminology and you know what I'm saying? All the terminology,
Yeah,
how measurements are done, what's the difference between emergency lighting measurements and general lighting measurements and, direction of where to go for local codes. And you know what I'm talking about. Like
totally.
that could be totally useful for the industry right now as we're on this collision course between emergency lighting and general lighting, which used to be two entirely separate industries basically.
Right. Yep.
Only really big facilities would have Bodine ballast and stuff like that. The
Uh-huh.
average facility would have exit signs with bug eyes on them and a couple remote heads here and there. You know what I mean? And you click the
Yep.
exit sign, right? Or they
Yep.
had, and multi-residential high-rise would often have a generator,
Yep.
right? The other thing too that's interesting is I would like to see if how LEDs work on generator power.
You don't think they would work as well?
I don't know because that generator. I don't know if you've seen generators like surge, and
Yeah.
there's like
Yeah.
it's different. It's not the same electricity as from the grid. You know what I
Sure.
mean? I can tell because I have a generator on my house, and the food cooks doesn't. The oven doesn't heat up as fast, and that kind of stuff when the generator's running it, right?
Yep.
So that LEDs are really prone to problems with those kinds of systems.
That's another point to consider for sure.
You know what I mean? So anyway,
Hmm.
I'm sure the Exitronics stuff works with that sort
Does.
of stuff. But all these different tubes and I don't know, it's getting too complicated to be reliable in my opinion with the
You're right.
on the retrofit side. Go to
You
Baron
want
Light,
reliability.
yeah,
That's
totally.
key. Yeah. Yep.
BaronLTG.com. That's their line of products at Exitronics. We talked about in the beginning the depth of the line. And when you see a deep line, you're seeing knowledge. You're seeing people that know how something works, which is why Baron is such a great partner with Nailed to have that real deep understanding of emergency lighting. I also want you to consider joining us if you have light bulbs in a warehouse. That's right, you sell them. Then this is your association. And I'm just going to tell you, this association is doing so much great work right now in the background for the entire industry, Greg.
That's right. That's what it's all about is making the industry better, making the people better, and making lighting better. Let's
Yeah,
do
I
it.
mean, we just did a first in-person course, advanced control certification. We got our convention coming up. This is where the action is, guys. If you got light bulbs in a warehouse, you got to get into Nailed. What is it? $250 is the minimum charge or something like that?
Yeah, you can handle it.
Yeah, it's not a lot of money to be a member of Nailed.
Um,
And there's a tons of ways that we give back and that you can help out and that you can train your employees and all that sort of stuff. Go to naald.org. Thank you for listening.